As a designer, many things excite me. Don't ask, I don't have to go into detail. But one of those things was the promise that Oscar, founder of Ikigai, was going to send me a version of the Kame when they hit into their production run. Now, long story short, sadly, that production did not happen because Kickstarter failed, and it's not gonna happen anymore. So I was really sad and really disappointed. However, he contacted me recently and then told me that hey, the Kame is coming to your channel, but in a different iteration. And when it arrived a couple of days ago, and you actually saw the unboxing video, I was pleasantly surprised. And I think this is a much better version than that of the original. Now, some of you already commented that it looks the safer choice. Actually, this safer choice is the better choice. Let me prove that to you, even though I still love that original unique design. So what does this new version of the Kame bring that makes it a lot more interesting and actually my favorite version of the watch? Find out. At first, I couldn't identify what excites me about this watch, but the more I experience it and how I look back to the journey that it went through, the more I understood how I felt. It's totally understandable that someone else has a different experience with this new version of the Kame, but I'm banking that many of you will echo the same sentiments as mine. At first glance, it looks like your typical microbrand diver, but I think you know what I'm going to say next. No, not that Indonesian hammerhead sharks are natural-born fixer-uppers, but rather it's how the small details and the story that makes this one stand out. This 40mm case with a 47mm lug distance feels incredibly comfortable on my 6¼ inch wrist. It also boasts that 12mm thickness that's perfectly suited for tool watches. The movement here is a Miyota 9039 caliber that is a proper time-only movement with a no-date complication. As dive watches go, it's more than capable with a 200-meter water resistance and a screw-down crown that we watch pirates cannot live without. But in reality, we can actually live without. A thing that I can live without are smaller crowns, and here it's a tad too small that I can't even tell when I'm screwing it down or not. But hey, a watch pirate can't complain too much. Or can we? So, can we complain about that ratchety sound of the bezel? Well, yes, it's a little muffled, but no slippage here and no backplay so far. Ikigai added a push-button clasp extension that many claim is a mythical tool. I'm telling you right now, it helps a bit, and if a microbrand doesn't have one, it feels rather disappointing. I personally use these extensions frequently as Aruba's sunny climate tends to fluctuate my wrist circumference. I absolutely love using these quick release spring bars. I use them more frequently than the bezels on these dive watches because they've become an integral part of my morning routine, especially when I'm pairing them with my wardrobe. Or is it the other way around? It's no secret that my go-to straps come from Australian brand Artem straps. They're very durable and quite the premium feeling straps. Their particular sailcloth material provides an appealing personality to any dive watch, and this Kame fully embraces its interesting texture. They also come with quick-release spring bars, making it convenient to switch from strap to strap. In fact, I've switched between straps during the day before, and it's always a lot of fun. Just look at that. The black rehaut and smoky fume dial complements this Kame beautifully. They enhance the gorgeous purple hue, making it even more vibrant. This black sailcloth strap has been very much abused by my wife and it's still boldly performing down to this day. This adds another dimension to the Kame as a worn-out strap can also pair well with this beautiful diver. Now, another popular budget option is a NATO strap. Arguably, it's the more versatile choice when it comes to color preferences, but here it has an unusual effect. Since it's fabric in nature, it should be easy enough to find a matching color for your watch, as there are literally thousands of these NATO options available online. However, this particular tint of purple and configuration may still be too distinct for a matching fabric strap. So for my favorite combo of them all, I went to the opposite route and chose a more striking contrast against the Kame. This beige loopless strap gives that summer spirit to this diver, which is just perfect for a tropical island life. So yes, it's a versatile tool watch with a jazzy color that could showcase itself. It will be a little tricky to look for some strap options, but it's convenient enough to make it a fun experience. Now that's just one side of the story. The other side we can talk about is the actual story itself. People are so hyped for the Ikigai Kame because just look at it. There's nothing like it in the market when it first came out. And when the Kickstarter campaign went through, everybody was excited to get this really unique watch. But then it was a downer because Kickstarter couldn't actually launch the whole campaign in the first place, which really disappointed many fans. So much so that, well, Oscar had to fund it on his own, and this is what we got because of that. Now, let's dive into the design elements that made it in from the former design down to this new one first, and then we'll talk about why it's such a big deal when we had the original Kame. Now, first and foremost, these lyre lugs that we see right here, these really made it not just unique but at the same time appealing to many people because this feeds all the way down to the bracelet, and that bracelet angle is not just a straight angled cut but also hints at the curvy natural elements of the whole shape, and this is further actuated by this turtle fin that you have on the lugs, and I was very happy that that made it into the new design. Another thing that we can keep an eye on is how all of these textures, these patterns in the middle of the inner dial also made it into the new dial. The image doesn't really do it justice. In person, you'll see the whole slew of effects that it has. Now, also, you can notice that this rehout also made it into the new design, especially with those markers, those eye markers. That's a really fun way of putting it. The first eye and the last eye are in between or caps off the first 5 minutes of the of, of the of the rehout, and that's a really cool and neat playful design. Now, if we look closely, this design is much more reserved and safe, as many people will call it, but it's because it's something that resonates with many of us. It's what we identify as a dive watch. Now, I'm not saying that this uh, very unique design is not appealing. In fact, I would love to see this and review this in my hand. So, Oscar, if you have the prototypes to spare, you can send it in, and I would love to make another video in comparison with these two. And that says something about that bezel design because this bezel design is really a unique take on this watch because it's not just hexagonal, but it has these wonderful natural curves to it, and at the same time you could clearly see some soft bevels here that hints at its nature, the nature aspect of this whole design. Now I could do without all of these these texts because they really aren't needed. It's an interesting watch that really has a rounded personality to it. It has that spirit of the turtles, as its namesake, Kame, which is Japanese for turtle. But here, it's kind of watered down a little bit. But that's okay because now it's a more relatable watch than ever before. Yes, it is unique. It has that really impactful design, but that's a design that's not for everyone. And I think this mass appeal for Ikigai will only help its brand. And look at that. Look at all of the patterns that you see there. That goes to show that that pattern in the middle was a really good choice to have it in this one. But let me go through another aspect of why, probably, I don't know if this is why Oscar went with funding it on his own. This case is, and in this case, it's all molded uh, to achieve that kind of form. You needed a mold. You needed to ask the factory to build a mold for you to, for them to achieve all of these curves in distinct shape of this case. Now, with the original design, you're not only going to have to do that for the case, but you also have to do that with the bezel, thus doubling your cost of production immensely from the production alone. And I think that's why they went with this bezel, because this is a bezel that can easily be, if not already is available for the factory. And then you had to just add a different distinct kind of bezel insert, and there you go. You now are able to produce the second version of the Kame for a relatively low cost. Now, keep in mind also that through the prototype, I heard that the prototype's bracelet also sticks at certain angles. Here, it is vastly improved. I didn't even experience it at all. So I think Oscar already fixed that, and that kind of bracelet is really, really amazing to experience, even though the class I think is a little too big. And that's, I think, the story of why we got this version instead of this one. And I would hope, really, one day that we'll get to see this version in the metal for this channel. I unboxed this a hot minute ago, and what you guys have to say is mostly positive. Next on the wrist said it's a great looking watch and it's interesting without being ridiculous. Faithful watch pirate Melvin Ramirez loves the fresh new colorway. Even Iron Man bought into the purple trend, as he said violet is now the new black. Abdul R Watches is also going to feature this watch on his channel. And finally, 1953 Addiction feels that the original is unique and a must-have, but this is still a safe and beautiful design. Looking closely at the bracelet, it works in harmony with the case lyre lugs. It's a clever way to have these facets polished, as it creates the illusion that the lugs are narrower than it really is. It also creates this impression that the whole case is slimmer than its 40mm dimensions. From the sides, Ikigai imbued a number of interesting elements with the sandblasted inlay and signed and loomed crown. Lastly, let's talk about that dial. As far as dials go, we have the full package here. Sunray? Check. Fume? Check. Geometric engraving? Check again. Brushed hardware? Check as well. Light play is the Kame's greatest strength. Every angle you tilt the watch, you can see a totally different pattern emerge from the dial. And in the absence of light, there is such a potent application of lume that it's really satisfying to see. Not only is it applied on the dial, but it's also printed on the bezel and, as mentioned before, on the crown. The light play also extends to the outer surfaces, as there are some very pleasing chamfers for the bracelet and the lugs and case. But there's one more exciting surprise that the Kame is hiding. As I was looking at the dial, at the very last minute I was reminded of a certain high-end watch that I needed to compare side by side. Here at Shibas, we have a JLC Polaris that's a real high-end showpiece that looks similar in impression to the Ikigai Kame. It also has that Fume dial going on and an inner and outer portion that's sunray finished. Although the dimensions in the case design is very different, I can't help but look at the similar looking indexes that creates a lasting impact on you. Don't let this comparison fool you though, the Kame is not going to sniff the Polaris yacht deck anytime soon. But it's still an exciting prospect to own this Ikigai nonetheless. As far as excitement goes, the Franklin Institute's study on emotion dimensions uses a two-dimensional approach: valence, positive or negative, and arousal, activating or deactivating. Anger, for example, is negative and high arousal, while calmness is positive and low arousal. Excitement in this scientific context is then positive and highly arousal. Don't make it weird now. Now I understand why I'm excited for this piece. It's because of the inspirational resilience of this brand and the positive experience I'm having with its watch. And that is the new Ikigai Kame, not the old version. I recognize that the older version is the more interesting and the more unique design, but I like this more because this really tugs at my heart. And the only explanation I can give you is because I love vintage style watches. And this totally has that feeling, even though it's a lot different. Whenever you tilt it, there's the light just shows a different pattern every time. It's very, very lovely. Well done there, Oscar. And I think this is going to sell out really, really quick, especially for your supporters of this brand. I love this new Safer Kame, but I'm going to reserve my judgment until I finally get my hands on with that original design. And I hope that that gets produced one day, even if it's a small, limited batch. But for now, this is my new favorite diver at the moment. Let's just support this brand, guys. These guys are very resilient. They failed in Kickstarter, or rather, Kickstarter failed them, and then they stood back up and produced this on their own. Well done, Oscar, and I think this is going to sell out. So, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, and of course, support Ikigai in the new Kame design.